When I think of great Gym Leader Challenge decks, there are a few that come to mind, but only one really stands out above the rest. Today, we are going over what may be the greatest GLC deck of all time. The type of the deck is, of course, Fighting, because Fighting has some of the best support Pokemon in GLC. To make the deck as consistent as possible, we have exactly one Pokemon, Hawlucha. Hawlucha has the ability Shining Spirit. Damage from this Pokemon's attacks isn't affected by weakness or resistance. Its attack, Flying Press, deals 60 damage, though if your opponent's active Pokemon isn't a Pokemon EX, the attack does nothing. 60 damage for 1 energy is very good, but the kicker is that Hawlucha has free retreat. It's truly an amazing card for GLC. Supporters. Supporters tend to have strong effects, so most decks run quite a few. Here are the ones that I think work best for this deck. Olivia searches the deck for 2 GX Pokemon. Licia searches the deck for 2 Prism Star cards. Red and Blue searches the deck for a GX Pokemon that evolves from one of your Pokemon and puts it into play, and it can accelerate up to 2 energy to it. Rose attaches up to 2 energy from the discard pile to a VMAX Pokemon, but it also discards your entire hand. Phoebe ensures that damage from Pokemon VMAX is unaffected by effects on the opponent's active Pokemon. Honey lets you draw a card for each Pokemon V on your opponent's bench. Melanie lets you attach a water energy from the discard pile to a Pokemon V and draw 3 cards. Adventurer's Discovery lets you search the deck for 3 Pokemon V. Fantina can reduce damage from your opponent's Pokemon V. And Volo can discard one of your Pokemon V from play. Deck search, energy acceleration, card draw, damage reduction, Pokemon removal, these supporters cover a lot of different situations. Now let's move on to the item cards. Some of the most important item cards are Pokemon search cards. There are 3 cards I found for this deck. Repeat Ball searches the deck for a Pokemon with the same name as one of your Pokemon in play. Familiar Bell searches your deck for a Pokemon with the same name as a Pokemon in your discard pile. Repeat Ball and Familiar Bell are both solid in decks that rely on multiple copies of the same card. Cherish Ball searches your deck for a Pokemon GX. Electromagnetic Radar searches your deck for up to 2 in any combination of Lightning Pokemon GX and Pokemon EX. There are lots of great GX Pokemon that are search targets for Cherish Ball and Electromagnetic Radar. Some item cards let you attach or move around energy. Mega Turbo attaches a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your Mega Evolution Pokemon. Tag Switch moves up to 2 energy from one of your Tag Team Pokemon to another of your Pokemon. Energy is important for using Pokemon attacks, so these cards are especially important. Some cards can only be played with a second copy at the same time. While these cards are normally very difficult to play consistently, I think these effects are too strong to exclude them from this deck. 2 Cross Switcher cards played together allow you to switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon with their active Pokemon and switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. 2 Cross Seaver cards played together let you put a Pokemon or supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. Effects that move around your opponent's Pokemon are particularly strong. Mega Catcher lets you switch one of your opponent's benched Mega Evolution Pokemon with his or her active Pokemon. Great Catcher lets you switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon GX or Pokemon EX with their active Pokemon. Finally, item cards that heal damage are also decent. Great Potion can heal 50 damage from your active Pokemon GX. Because there is only one Pokemon in this deck, we can fill a lot of the deck space with tool cards to address all possible game scenarios. Some tools are useful when a Pokemon is knocked out. Farewell Bell. If the Pokemon VMAX this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an attack from an opponent's Pokemon, search your deck for a card and put it into your hand. Box of Disaster. If the Pokemon V this card is attached to has full HP and is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, put 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. Island Challenge Amulet. The Pokemon GX or Pokemon EX this card is attached to gets minus 100 HP, and when it is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, that player takes 1 fewer prize card. Hero's Medal. The Pokemon VMAX this card is attached to gets minus 100 HP, and if it is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, that player takes 1 fewer prize card. Beast Bringer. If you have exactly 6 prize cards remaining, and if your opponent's active Pokemon GX or EX is knocked out by damage from an attack of the Ultra Beast this card is attached to, take 1 more prize card. Most players forget to take advantage of their once per game V-Star power. There are 3 tool cards that can help you take advantage of it. Forest Sealstone, Star Alchemy. During your turn, you may search your deck for a card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Earthen Sealstone, Star Gravity. Put damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon V until its remaining HP is 100. Sky Seal Stone, Star Order. If your opponent's active Pokemon V-Star or active Pokemon V-Max is knocked out by damage from an attack from your basic Pokemon V, take 1 more prize card. Some tools are useful for fixing damage numbers to obtain knockouts. Silver Bangle increases damage on active Pokemon EX by 30. Choice Band increases damage on active Pokemon GX by 30. Choice Belt increases damage on active Pokemon V by 30, and Telescopic Sight increases damage on benched Pokemon V and GX by 30. There is a damage modifier useful for any situation. There are also cards that can mitigate damage. One example is Choice Helmet. The Pokemon attached takes 30 less damage from the attacks of your opponent's Pokemon GX and Pokemon EX. Some other cards that can prevent damage include the Fairy Charm tools. There's one for Pokemon GX with abilities, one for Ultra Beast GX, and one for each of Lightning, Fighting, Psychic, Grass, and Dragon GX. They give Fairy decks some much needed support, so Hawlucha... Moving on. Another defensive tool card is Leafy Camo Poncho. Whenever your opponent plays a supporter card from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to the Pokemon V-Star or Pokemon VMAX this card is attached to. It can be useful in preventing the Pokemon from getting moved into the active spot. Some tool cards are attached to your opponent's Pokemon. Headringer, the attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to cost 1 colorless more. Jamming Net, the attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to do 20 less damage to all defending Pokemon. Both can only be attached to Pokemon EX, but the effects are decent. The rest of the tools are useful when attached to specific Pokemon. Power Memory is useful with Zygarde EX, Rusted Shield for Zamazenta V, Rusted Sword for Zacian V, Elemental Badge for Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon V, Moon and Sun Badge for Umbreon and Espeon V, Ribbon Badge for Sylveon V, and Snow Leaf Badge for Glaceon and Leafeon V. I won't go through each of these individually, but trust me, these are all situationally useful. Finally, every competitive GLC deck needs Stadium cards, if only to bump an opposing Stadium card. Here are the ones I found for this deck. Misty's Cerulean City Gym. The attacks of Starmie GX do 40 more damage to the opponent's active Pokemon. Brock's Pewter City Gym. Onix GX takes 40 less damage from the opponent's attacks. Winden Stadium. Whenever either player plays a Pokemon VMAX from their hand to evolve a Pokemon V during their turn, heal 100 damage from that Pokemon. Fighting Stadium. The attacks of each fighting Pokemon in play do 20 more damage to the defending Pokemon EX. Faded Town. At any time between turns, put 2 damage counters on each Mega Evolution Pokemon. Shrine of Punishment. Between turns, put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon GX and Pokemon EX. Power Plant. Pokemon GX and Pokemon EX in play have no abilities. It shuts down strong GX cards like Tabulele GX and Dedenne GX. Path to the Peak is even better. When this card is in play, Pokemon with a rule box have no abilities. It shuts down Radiant Pokemon, Pokemon V, GX, Uppercase EX, Lowercase EX, and Prism Star Pokemon. This card is bonkers. Here are some cards I did not include in the deck due to deck space that I think are worth considering. Altaria Spirit Link and other Spirit Link cards from Mega Evolution Pokemon, Fighting Memory and other memory cards for Silvally GX, and First Ticket. Before you flip a coin to decide who goes first in a game, you may play this card. Don't flip that coin, and you go first. That's it for the deck list. Yes, the deck is 60 cards. Every card is legal, and the strategy is fun enough that your opponent will probably have a good time. The mirror match is especially nice. Hope you all enjoyed this deck list. Should you choose to build this deck? Have fun. Until next time, play Super Scoop Up with one Pokemon in play. This game is a coin flip game.